When billionaire Charles Whitmore invited his maid's quiet little daughter to play a game of chess, just for fun, he thought he was being kind. What he didn't know was that the silent child sitting across from him wasn't just brilliant at chess. She was the one thing he had lost long ago, and never thought he'd find again. Where everyday moments become extraordinary stories of hope, family, and second chances. If you believe that even a simple chessboard can reconnect hearts that were once separated, then you're in the right place. Let us know in the comments, where are you watching from today? We love hearing from our amazing community across the world. And if this story touches your heart, please don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe to join us for more tales that remind us, sometimes the smallest moves lead to the biggest victories. Now let me tell you a story that begins not with a championship, but with a golden chess set, a quiet girl, and a past waiting to be uncovered. 8-year-old Lily Bennett pressed her nose against the car window as it turned onto the long winding driveway. Her eyes grew wide as the towering white estate of Charles Whitmore came into view, a place so grand it looked like it had been plucked from the pages of a fairy tale. With tall stone pillars, flower beds shaped like stars, and a fountain that danced in the sunlight, the mansion took Lily's breath away. Sitting beside her in the front seat was her mother, Anna Bennett, who gripped the steering wheel with a quiet tension in her shoulders. "Remember, Lily," she said gently, "we're just here for the day. Stay close to me, don't wander, and please, don't touch anything." Lily nodded. She was good at being quiet. Ever since she was little, she'd learned that silence made things easier for her mother. This wasn't the first house Anna had cleaned, but it was by far the most intimidating. They parked near the side entrance, where one of the house staff, a woman in a black blazer, greeted Anna and led them through a service hallway lined with gleaming floors and polished mirrors. Lily tried her best to stay close, her sneakers making soft squeaks on the marble as she walked. Inside, the house was nothing like anything she'd ever seen. The ceilings stretched so high she couldn't see where they ended. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and fresh roses. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, and the walls were covered with paintings, not the kind you find in school books, but real paintings that looked like they belonged in museums. Anna set down her cleaning supplies in a side room and gave Lily a quick hug. "I need you to sit and read quietly, okay? I'll be in the next room." Lily nodded again, but as her mother disappeared around a corner, Lily found herself standing at the entrance of a large room filled wall-to-wall with books. It was a library, but not like the one at school. This room had velvet armchairs, tall ladders that rolled along the shelves, and golden sconces that cast a soft glow over everything. In the middle of the room, illuminated by a beam of sunlight streaming in through a tall window, sat a square marble table. And on top of that table was the most beautiful thing Lily had ever seen. It was a chess set, but not like the one in her classroom with missing pawns and bent plastic queens. This one gleamed. The board was carved from alternating squares of cream and black marble, polished so smooth it reflected the light like a mirror. The pieces looked like tiny sculptures, knights carved from silver, rooks topped with delicate spires, pawns etched with tiny armor details. The white pieces sparkled like moonlight. The black pieces shimmered like obsidian. Lily stepped closer, her heart fluttering in her chest. She had seen chess before, and her teacher had explained how the pieces moved, but she had never seen a set so beautiful or complete. She wasn't supposed to touch. She knew that. But the pieces seemed to whisper to her, calling her closer, asking to be understood. She folded her hands behind her back and leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning the board. The pieces were already set up, a full game waiting to begin. She recognized the king and queen at the center, the bishop with its tall mitre, the horse-shaped knight. Even the little pawns looked noble in their formation. "You like chess?" The voice startled her. Lily gasped and stepped back, her face flushing. She turned and saw a man standing near the doorway, dressed in a tailored navy suit. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his eyes, a soft gray, sparkled with something between curiosity and amusement. I wasn't touching anything," Lily said quickly. "I was just looking." The man smiled warmly. It's all right. I was just asking if you like chess. I've only seen it at school, she said quietly. But I think it's beautiful. Well, the man said, walking slowly into the room, this is one of my favorite sets. The pieces were carved by an artist in Florence. It took him 2 years to finish it. Lily's eyes widened. She had no idea where Florence was, but it sounded important. I'm Charles Whitmore, he said, extending a hand. Lily stared at it for a moment, then gently shook it. I'm Lily. Lily Bennett. Charles studied her for a second longer, then motioned to the board. Would you like to learn how to play? Just for fun. Lily hesitated. I should probably wait for my mom. If she's all right with it, Charles said, I could show you how the pieces move. No pressure. Just a game between new friends. Lily looked back at the chessboard, then at Charles. There was something kind in his eyes, not just polite, but sincere. She nodded slowly. Okay. Wonderful, Charles said, pulling out a chair. Let's begin. Lily sat down slowly at the marble table, her small fingers folded neatly in her lap as Charles Whitmore began arranging the pieces. The chessboard between them gleamed like a frozen lake, each piece standing tall and dignified, waiting for orders. Charles moved with practiced ease, placing each piece in its starting position. You said you've never played a real game before, he asked gently, glancing at her. Lily shook her head. My teacher showed us the names of the pieces. But I've never actually played. Charles smiled. Well, today's a good day to start. I'll teach you step by step. No pressure, no competition, just fun. Lily gave a tiny nod, her eyes focused on the board. All right, Charles said. Let's begin with the pawns. They're the little soldiers in the front row. They move 1 square forward at a time. Unless it's their first move, Lily interrupted quietly. Then they can move 2 squares. Charles blinked, surprised. That's right. How did you know that? I read it in a book once, she said. But I wasn't sure if it was real. He chuckled. It's very real. Good memory. He went on to explain the rook's straight line movement and the bishop's diagonal reach. As he spoke, Lily listened without interrupting, but her eyes tracked each piece as though she were already imagining them moving across the board in her mind. And the queen? She asked. She's the most powerful, Charles said, lifting the piece. She can move in any direction, forward, backward, sideways, diagonal, as far as she wants. Lily nodded slowly. She sounds like a protector. Charles smiled. That's a good way to think about it. When he introduced the knight, he showed her how it moved in an L shape, 2 squares in one direction, then one to the side. He moved it over a pawn to demonstrate how it could jump. That's my favorite, Lily said softly. The horse. The knight, Charles corrected kindly. It's the only piece that can leap over others. She studied it. It looks like it wants to help. Charles tilted his head. Help who? The king, she said, pointing at the white king on the board. If the king's in danger, the knight should jump close to him. Like this. She picked up the knight and placed it beside the king, her small fingers gentle but deliberate. Charles leaned forward slightly. Why do you say that? Lily shrugged. Because the king can't run fast. He needs help. There was something in her tone that made Charles pause. It wasn't just a child guessing. It was a child understanding. Let's try a few moves, he suggested. You can be white. That means you go first. Lily reached for the pawn in front of her king and pushed it forward 2 spaces. Classic opening, Charles murmured, impressed. He responded with a simple pawn move of his own. Then he watched as Lily developed her pieces, knights, bishops, with surprising instinct. He didn't need to remind her of the rules. She remembered every instruction. What surprised him most was how she didn't just move randomly. Each move had purpose. She didn't stare at the board with confusion, like most beginners. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something deeper. "You know," she said after her third move, "I think the knight wants to jump here." She moved it close to the king again. "To protect him." Charles blinked. "You said that before." "Because that's what I keep thinking," Lily replied, not looking up. "It's like the knight knows that's his job." Charles sat back in his chair. He had taught many people how to play chess over the years: colleagues, children of friends, even a few professionals looking for a casual match. Most people struggled at first, mixing up rules or forgetting how the pieces moved. But Lily? She was playing like someone who had studied the game quietly in her sleep. They continued for a few more moves. Lily didn't win, of course. But she came close to trapping his king in a corner, not through luck, but through a subtle maneuver involving her bishop and rook working together. It was a setup he had shown to grown adults who couldn't grasp it. As he moved his king to safety, Charles looked at her with curiosity. "You're picking this up very quickly," he said. "Are you sure you've never played before?" "I've only read about it," Lily said. "And sometimes I think about it." "Think about it?" She nodded. "Like when I'm falling asleep. I imagine the pieces moving. I don't know why. I just like how they fit together." Charles watched her for a long moment. She wasn't just playing. She was seeing. By the end of the third day, something about the way Lily moved across the chessboard began to unsettle Charles Whitmore. At first, he thought she was just a bright child with a knack for learning. But each afternoon, as he met her in the grand library and reset the pieces on the golden and silver set, Charles noticed her moves becoming more complex, not in the way beginners improve through practice, but as if something inside her was waking up. She was no longer just playing. She was remembering. On Thursday afternoon, Lily lured his queen into a trap by sacrificing her rook. Charles blinked in disbelief as she delivered a check that cornered his king behind his own pawns. A move like that required at least 3 moves of foresight. "Well done," he said cautiously. Lily simply smiled, looking at the board with quiet satisfaction. "I knew your queen would go there," she said. She felt too brave. Charles raised an eyebrow. "She felt brave." "Yeah," Lily replied, her fingers dancing over the edge of the table. "She wanted to take too much space. I just gave her what she wanted." That night, Charles sat alone in the library after Lily and her mother had gone. He stared at the chessboard for nearly an hour, replaying the match move by move. She hadn't just made clever moves. She had predicted his thinking. She had drawn him in, deliberately. Something didn't feel random about it. The next morning, he made a call. "Evelyn," he said, pacing by the window. "I need a favor. Something unusual." Dr. Evelyn Ross had been his friend for nearly a decade. A world-class chess coach with a background in cognitive science, she was known for identifying prodigies from a very young age. If anyone could make sense of what he was seeing, it was her. When she arrived at the estate that afternoon, Charles greeted her with a tense handshake. "She's in the library," he said. 8 years old. Never trained formally. Picked up the rules this week. Evelyn arched a skeptical eyebrow. "And you're sure she's not just precocious?" "That's what I thought at first," Charles admitted. "But it's more than that. She plays like she's remembering something. You'll see." They stepped into the library, where Lily sat cross-legged on one of the velvet chairs, sketching chess pieces in a notebook. When she looked up and saw Charles, she smiled shyly. "Good afternoon, Lily," he said warmly. "I'd like you to meet a friend of mine. This is Dr. Ross. She teaches chess." Lily stood politely and shook Evelyn's hand. "Nice to meet you," she said softly. "Likewise," Evelyn replied. "I hear you've been learning very quickly." Lily gave a small shrug. "I just think about it a lot. Charles gestured to the board. Would you like to play a game? Lily nodded, and they began setting up the pieces. Evelyn took black, Lily white. From the first few moves, Evelyn felt a shift in the room. Most children her age relied on memorized openings or repeated patterns. Lily didn't. She built her position organically, adapting as Evelyn moved. Within 10 moves, she had created a powerful center and launched a coordinated attack on Evelyn's kingside. Evelyn tried a defensive tactic, but Lily countered smoothly, anticipating her every step. By move 17, Evelyn frowned. By move 24, she was sweating. By move 30, she was staring at a checkmate. Lily sat back, folding her hands. That's what happens when the bishop and knight work together, she said matter-of-factly. Evelyn blinked at the board, stunned. Then she looked up slowly, her expression unreadable. Would you mind if I showed you a puzzle? She asked, reaching for her leather satchel. Lily nodded. I like puzzles. Evelyn flipped open a thick binder filled with Grandmaster-level chess problems. She pointed to the first diagram, a notoriously difficult endgame scenario. Lily stared at it for a few seconds. Queen to h6, then knight to f7. That traps the king. Evelyn's eyes widened. She flipped to another, harder position. Pawn to e7, Lily said after 15 seconds. Then rook swings over. That forces a fork. Another. Lily solved each within seconds, her gaze focused, her voice calm. When she finally looked up, Evelyn was sitting very still. Charles leaned forward. Well. Evelyn looked at him slowly. Her voice was low. She's not learning, Charles, she whispered. She's remembering. What do you mean? Evelyn exhaled. I've seen brilliant children. Gifted minds. But this is different. She's not just applying logic. She feels the board. Like it's familiar. Like it's already part of her. Lily looked between them, her brow furrowed. Did I do something wrong? No, sweetheart, Evelyn said, managing a smile. You did something extraordinary. That night, Lily lay curled beneath her blanket, the soft hum of the city outside her bedroom window blending with the thoughts swirling in her head. The game she had played earlier with Dr. Ross still lingered in her mind. The tension, the quiet thrill of seeing the winning pattern before anyone else. But it wasn't just the chess moves that echoed in her thoughts. It was something stranger. A feeling that each piece, each strategy, wasn't something she was learning. It was something she already knew. She stared at the ceiling for a long time, listening to the muffled sounds of her mother washing dishes in the kitchen. Then quietly she called out, Mama. Anna's footsteps padded softly into the room. What is it, baby? Lily sat up slowly. Can I ask you something weird? Anna smiled faintly and sat down at the edge of her bed. Of course. Do I look like anyone you know? Anna blinked. What do you mean? Like, do I look like someone from before I was born? Or someone you used to know? Lily paused. Sometimes people at school say I have unusual eyes. One girl said they look like storm clouds. Anna laughed softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. You have beautiful eyes, sweetheart. Just like you. But do I look like you? Lily asked. Anna hesitated, then brushed a curl from Lily's forehead. You have a little of me, I think. But you also have pieces that are your own. Lily was quiet for a moment, then said in a soft voice, I had a dream last night. Oh. Anna asked gently. There was a man. He had silver hair, like snow. And his eyes were gray, the same gray as, she paused, then continued. He was teaching me to play chess. Not with words, but with looks. Like he didn't need to explain. He just moved the pieces, and I understood. And I felt safe. Like I'd known him my whole life. Anna's hand stilled on Lily's blanket. In the dream, Lily went on, I called him Dad. And it didn't feel strange. It felt normal. Like I'd done it before. Anna's lips parted slightly, but no words came out. Do you think dreams can tell you things? Lily asked. Things you forgot. Anna swallowed hard. Sometimes, she said quietly. Dreams can remind us of what's buried deep. Have you ever had a dream like that? Lily asked. Anna looked away. Once. Lily tilted her head. Was it about someone you loved? A long pause. Yes. Lily reached over and took her mother's hand. Did he have gray eyes? Anna looked down at their intertwined fingers and nodded faintly. Lily didn't ask anything else. She just leaned into her mother's side, resting her head against her arm. Later that night, when Lily was fast asleep, Anna stood alone in the living room. The lights were off except for the soft glow of a lamp on the side table. She moved slowly, as if unsure of her own steps, and opened the bottom drawer of the small wooden chest beside the couch. Inside was a shoebox, worn and dusty with age. She pulled it out and lifted the lid, revealing a stack of photographs bundled together with a faded blue ribbon. Her fingers trembled as she untied the knot. The top photograph showed a much younger Anna, maybe just out of college, standing on the steps of an old university building. Her hair was longer then, and her smile softer. But it was the man beside her that made her breath catch. He was tall, clean-shaven, with silver blonde hair that shimmered under the sunlight, and light gray eyes that sparkled with laughter. His arm was around her shoulders, and he looked at her like the rest of the world had disappeared. Anna stared at the photo for a long time, brushing her thumb over his face. Those eyes. Those same gray eyes that now looked back at her from the face of an 8-year-old girl who dreamed about chess. She flipped through a few more pictures, the two of them in a small cafe, laughing over coffee, a blurry photo of them dancing in the rain, a candid shot of him reading a book while she watched him from across the room. Then, tucked at the bottom, was a letter. Folded and creased, the ink faded from time. She didn't need to open it. She already knew what it said. I should have told him, she whispered to the silence. I should have told him everything. Anna sat back on the couch, the shoebox in her lap, and closed her eyes. In her mind, she could still hear his voice. Still see the way he had once looked at her with wonder. And now his daughter was beginning to remember him in dreams. A daughter who had never met her father, but who somehow moved chess pieces as if she'd learned from him in another life. Anna was polishing the brass handles of the library's double doors when Charles stepped into the hallway. Anna, he said softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned quickly, then straightened, wiping her hands on the cloth. Yes, Mr. Whitmore? Could we talk? Just for a moment. In private. She hesitated. The last time he'd asked her that, it was to praise Lily for her chess games, nothing more than kind words. But this time, his expression was different. Not stern, but serious. Quietly serious. She nodded. He led her into a small sitting room off the east wing. It was a quiet, sunlit space, rarely used except for solitary reading. A single armchair sat near a low marble table. On that table was something Anna hadn't seen in years. A photograph. Charles gestured toward it, then took a breath as he turned to face her. I found this last night, he said. Well, not found. I've kept it all this time. Anna stepped forward slowly, her eyes dropping to the frame. Her breath caught in her throat. It was the photo. That photo. The one she thought she'd destroyed. It showed the two of them, years younger, standing under a canopy of autumn leaves on the university campus where she had once worked. Her cheeks were rosy from the cold. His arm was around her, pulling her close, and both of them were laughing, not posed, not polished, just real. I kept it, Charles said again, his voice low. Even after you left. Anna swallowed, her eyes filling. Where did you get that? You left it in my desk drawer, folded inside a book. I couldn't throw it away." She looked at him, and suddenly the years between them felt like yesterday. "I always wondered," he added quietly, "why you left without a word. No goodbye. No explanation. You were just gone." Anna sat slowly on the edge of the armchair, her fingers trembling as she reached for the photo. She held it gently, like it might fall apart in her hands. "I was pregnant," she said. Charles didn't move. Didn't speak. "I found out 2 weeks after I quit," she continued. "At first, I was going to tell you. I wanted to. But then," her voice cracked, "then I remembered what people would say." He leaned forward. "Say what?" "That I was the maid who trapped a billionaire," she said bitterly. "That I used you. That she, Lily, would always be seen as the daughter of his money. Not as her own person." Charles shook his head. "You think I would have let anyone say that about you? About her? I didn't want her to grow up with whispers behind her back. Or reporters showing up at our door. I wanted her to have a quiet life. A chance to be normal." "But she's not normal, Anna," he said gently. "She's extraordinary." Anna looked down, her shoulders shaking. A tear slipped down her cheek and landed on the edge of the photograph. "I watch her sit at that chessboard," Charles continued. "And it's like watching a memory come alive. The way she tilts her head. The way her eyes scan the board. It's you and me, Anna. It's both of us." She looked up at him then, eyes red. "She has your eyes." Charles's voice was rough with emotion. "I know. I tried to keep her away from this world. But somehow," she laughed through her tears, "somehow, she ended up here anyway. Sitting in the same room, playing the same game, with the only man I ever." She stopped herself. Charles stepped closer, then knelt gently in front of her. He took her hand, the one still holding the photo, in his. "Is she mine?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Anna nodded. "She's yours." A long silence fell between them, filled only by the sound of the old clock ticking above the fireplace. "I've missed 8 years," he said quietly. "I was scared," Anna whispered. "I didn't know how to raise her in your world. I didn't know how to raise her in mine either. But I did my best." Charles looked down, then back up at her. "You did more than that. She's brilliant. Kind. Strong. She's remarkable." "She's your daughter," Anna said softly. "She's our daughter," he corrected. Tears streamed down her face. This time, she didn't try to stop them. The night before the National Youth Chess Championship, Lily sat cross-legged on the rug in the living room, practicing her openings with a small wooden travel set. Her brow was furrowed in focus, eyes darting between the pieces as she whispered strategies to herself. Across the room, Charles and Anna stood near the window, their silhouettes outlined by the soft city lights filtering through the glass. For days, they had discussed when and how to tell her the truth. There would never be a perfect moment. But with the tournament tomorrow, and everything changing so fast, they knew it had to be now. Anna took a deep breath. "Lily," she called gently. Lily looked up, blinking. "Yes, Mama." "Could you come sit with us for a minute?" Lily rose and padded over, sitting between them on the plush couch. She glanced between their serious expressions. "Is something wrong?" Charles shook his head. "No, sweetheart. Nothing's wrong. But there's something important we want to tell you." Anna reached into her purse and pulled out the photograph. The same one Charles had shown her days ago. She held it out with careful hands. Lily took the photo, her fingers brushing over the image. It was her mother, younger and laughing. And beside her, a tall man with silver blonde hair and gray eyes that looked so familiar it made her stomach flutter. She looked up slowly. "That's you," she said to Charles. He nodded. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. You knew my mom before? Charles's voice was soft. We were very close once, a long time ago. Lily looked down again at the photo, then back at him. Her eyes searched his face, not with suspicion, but with something deeper. A quiet recognition. "Conyu," Anna said gently, placing a hand over her daughter's. "This man. Charles. He's not just your chess teacher. He's your father." Silence settled into the room like snow. Lily didn't move. Her small hands tightened slightly on the edges of the photo, but her face gave nothing away. She stared at Charles, as if the pieces of a long unsolved puzzle were finally falling into place. After what felt like a lifetime, she spoke. "I've been playing chess, with my dad?" Her voice cracked just slightly. Charles blinked, his gray eyes shimmering. "Yes, sweetheart. You have." She looked down again, not crying, not shaking, just quiet. Thoughtful. "I dreamed about you," she said after a moment. "Before I ever came here. I saw you. In a dream. You were teaching me without speaking. Just showing me the pieces, and I understood. I thought it was just imagination." Charles swallowed hard. Maybe it was more than a dream. Lily looked up at her mother. "Why didn't you tell me?" Anna's voice trembled. "I was trying to protect you. I didn't know if bringing him into your life would make things better, or harder." "I would have wanted to know," Lily said softly. Anna reached out, brushing Lily's cheek. "I know. And I'm sorry." Charles leaned forward, his hands clasped. "I've missed so much, Lily. I didn't know about you for years. But now that I do, I want to be part of your life, if you'll let me." Lily studied his face. The same kind eyes she had trusted from the moment they'd met. The quiet patience in every chess game. The warmth in his voice every time he said, "Just for fun." "You already are," she whispered. "You've been part of it this whole time." A long moment passed. Then, slowly, Lily reached out and took his hand. "I'm scared about tomorrow," she admitted. "The tournament is so big." Charles smiled gently. "Whatever happens, I'll be there. Win or lose. Because now, I'm not just your coach." "I know," Lily said, her voice steadier. "You're my dad." Anna wiped a tear from her cheek and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "We're both here for you. Always." Lily nodded and looked down at the photograph again. "This time," she smiled. "I guess the game started a long time ago," she murmured. "And I didn't even know who I was playing with." The championship hall was massive. Rows of neatly arranged chessboards stretched across the polished floor beneath rows of bright overhead lights. Cameras hovered discreetly in the corners, reporters whispered into their microphones, and the air was heavy with tension and expectation. Lily Bennett sat quietly at the final board, her small hands resting in her lap. Her tournament badge read finalist, age 8. The youngest competitor in the entire event. Across from her sat Ethan Price, tall, confident, and already slouched in his seat like he had somewhere else to be. At 16, he was the reigning national champion. His face bore the cool smirk of someone who'd seen it all before. "You sure you're in the right seat?" Ethan said, half joking. Lily blinked, then smiled politely. "Pretty sure." "Okay, just checking," he said, chuckling as he set up his pieces. "I don't want to be the bad guy when this gets awkward." Lily didn't answer. She simply began arranging her side of the board with quiet precision. Each piece she touched, she placed like it mattered, not as plastic or wood, but as something living. Something important. The tournament director raised his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, the final match of the National Youth Chess Championship is about to begin. On board 1, defending champion Ethan Price versus challenger Lily Bennett." The room fell silent. "You may begin." Ethan played white. He opened aggressively, pushing his king's pawn forward, then developing his knight and bishop with flair. The kind of opening he'd used to beat dozens of opponents before. Lily responded calmly, almost gently, matching his pace without overreacting. She didn't rush. She didn't try to mimic his flashy style. Her moves were clean, efficient, like notes in a quiet melody. 10 moves in, Ethan's smirk began to fade. 15 moves in, his brow furrowed. By the 20th move, Ethan was leaning in, gripping his chin. What had looked like a passive formation from Lily had suddenly evolved into a flexible, multi-layered attack. Her rook quietly repositioned. Her bishop slid across the board, aligning itself with precision. Her knight, previously passive, now loomed near the center like a coiled spring. "She's building something," a spectator whispered. "No, she already built it," another replied. "We just didn't see it." Ethan cast a glance across the table. Lily wasn't even looking at him. Her eyes were on the board, soft gray and steady, like the calm before a storm. She didn't fidget, didn't blink. She was in the game, completely. Ethan moved his queen out early, aiming for a quick kingside attack. Lily blocked with a pawn, then calmly developed her rook. Each of her moves seemed to hum in harmony with the next, like an orchestra warming to its crescendo. By move 30, Ethan realized he was playing defense. Him, the national champion, on the back foot against an 8-year-old. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Reporters scribbled notes furiously. Even the commentators sitting at the side of the hall leaned closer to their screens. And then, it happened. Lily's knight jumped to f5, threatening 2 pieces at once. Ethan responded by sacrificing his bishop, trying to open space. But Lily didn't hesitate. Her next move, a quiet, almost forgettable pawn advance, shifted the entire momentum of the game. It wasn't flashy. It was devastating. Her pieces began to move like water, flowing into every open crack in Ethan's position. Her queen repositioned. Her rook sliced down the open file. Her knight returned with perfect timing, striking a diagonal that seemed to come from nowhere. "Wait, is she setting up?" one of the analysts gasped. 3 moves later, Ethan moved his king out of desperation. Lily took a breath, reached for her queen, and with a gentle click, placed it on g7. She sat back. "Checkmate," she said softly. For a full 3 seconds, the room didn't move. Then gasps. Applause. A roar. Ethan stared at the board in disbelief. He blinked twice, then looked up at her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even embarrassed. "That was," he said slowly, "the most beautiful game I've ever played." Lily smiled shyly. "Thank you." The director stepped forward, barely containing his awe. "Ladies and gentlemen, Lily Bennett has just defeated the defending champion and become the youngest winner in national youth chess history." Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But Lily didn't seem to hear them. She turned toward the audience, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found 2 faces. Her mother. And her father. Both standing. Both crying. Both clapping with hands that shook from pride. The applause had barely died down when the announcer stepped back to the center of the stage, holding a golden trophy that glimmered beneath the bright stage lights. It was nearly half the size of the girl who had just claimed it. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said into the microphone, voice echoing through the grand hall, "please join me in congratulating our 2025 National Youth Chess Champion, Miss Lily Bennett." The crowd erupted again. Teachers, coaches, parents, and reporters all rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Even Ethan Price, the former champion, stood near the back of the room, clapping with a wide grin on his face. Lily stepped forward, still stunned, as the announcer gently handed her the trophy. It was heavy, solid, but she held it firmly, her arms steady despite the weight. And, the announcer continued, along with the title, Lily will receive a check for $10,000, a full scholarship to the National Chess Academy, and a feature article in Chess World magazine. There were more cheers. More flashes of camera lights. Someone from the audience shouted, "Way to go, Lily." Charles and Anna stood together near the front row, their hands clasped, tears streaming silently down their cheeks. Lily blinked into the crowd, then turned slightly as a reporter, microphone in hand, approached the edge of the stage. "Lily," she said kindly, kneeling down to the girl's level, "congratulations on your incredible win. That was one of the most breathtaking games we've ever seen." "Thank you," Lily said, her voice small but steady. The reporter smiled. "So we all want to know, what are you going to do with the prize money?" The room went quiet. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Lily looked down at the trophy, then at the oversized check now resting on an easel beside her. $10,000. It was more money than she had ever imagined. More than her mother made in many months. She could have asked for a new bedroom, a vacation, a fancy chess set of her own. But instead, she looked out across the crowd and said softly, "I want to use the money to buy chess sets." The reporter blinked. "Chess sets?" Lily nodded. "For kids who don't have them. For schools that can't afford them. So they can learn too." There was a pause, a stillness, as everyone processed what she had just said. "I was lucky," she added. "I got to learn chess in a beautiful library with golden pieces. But I think every kid should have a chance to play, even if the board is made of cardboard. Because chess is magic. It teaches you how to think, how to wait, how to hope." A hush fell over the entire room. Then suddenly, the sound of someone clapping. It started slowly. One pair of hands. Then another. Then a wave. Within seconds, the entire audience was on its feet again, this time not for a championship win, but for a child who had just reminded them what real generosity looked like. Reporters wiped their eyes. Coaches looked at each other, nodding quietly. Some of the older kids in the crowd glanced down at their own expensive gear and stood a little straighter. On stage, Lily blushed but stood tall, gripping the edge of her trophy like it anchored her. The announcer returned to the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. "Well, I think it's safe to say we didn't just witness a champion in chess today, we witnessed a champion in heart." The cameras zoomed in as Lily turned to her parents. She didn't need to speak. Her smile said it all. Charles took Anna's hand, his throat tight. "That's our girl." Anna nodded, unable to say anything through the lump in her throat. Later, as Lily stepped off the stage, reporters swarmed around her, but she clung to her parents' hands, overwhelmed but glowing. A few kids came up to her shyly, younger ones who had lost in earlier rounds, asking if they could play with her sometime. "Yes," Lily said. "Anytime." Outside, snow had started falling, light and soft, as the family walked down the grand steps of the event center. Lily looked up at the sky, her trophy tucked carefully under one arm. "I don't want the day to end," she whispered. "It's not ending," Charles said gently. "It's just beginning." 3 weeks after the championship, life had returned to a quieter rhythm. Lily Bennett, now a national chess champion, still lived in the same small apartment on Maple Street with her mother. The walls remained slightly chipped in places, and the kitchen still smelled like cinnamon and lemon soap. But something had changed, something you couldn't see, but you could feel. The air was warmer, the laughter brighter, and the silence no longer carried a sense of something missing. Each morning, Lily would tie her shoes at the kitchen table while her mother packed lunch, and like clockwork, the soft knock came at exactly 7:30 a.m. Charles. He didn't wear a suit anymore when he came to see them, just a sweater and jeans, sometimes still smelling faintly of coffee from the cafe down the street. He brought Lily's favorite muffins, and always had a folded newspaper tucked under his arm. "Good morning, sunshine," he'd greet her, just like always. "Hi, Dad," Lily would reply, her voice growing more confident with each passing day. It had taken her a few days to start calling him that. At first, it felt too big, too sudden. But now it felt right. Natural. Like breathing. He walked her to school most mornings, holding her backpack and asking about her homework, her teachers, her latest chess puzzle. They passed the same crossing guard, the same noisy bus stop, the same bakery where Lily always paused to peek in the window. And every time she reached the school gate, Charles would kneel, touch her shoulder, and whisper, "Have fun," and think 3 moves ahead. She always smiled at that. Lily still went to her regular school. No private tutors or academy transfers. She sat in the same desk next to her best friend Sophie, still passed silly notes during math class, and still got excited for Pizza Fridays. But now, every Friday afternoon, something new happened at the school library. The Lincoln Elementary Chess Club. It had started with just Lily and Sophie pushing around a few pawns after school. But then more kids joined. Then teachers noticed. And soon the principal gave them a whole corner of the library to themselves, complete with a big banner that read, "Think like a queen, move like a knight." Lily became the club's unofficial coach. She didn't lecture or act like she was better. She knelt beside younger students, helped them understand openings, smiled patiently when they forgot how bishops moved. "This piece doesn't make sense," a first grader once complained, holding a knight. Lily had smiled. "It will. It just moves differently. Like some people do." Back at home, Anna had returned to work, but not as a housekeeper. Charles had offered her a position at his foundation, managing education grants and youth programs. It was something she'd always wanted to do, she just never imagined she'd do it with him. Their relationship was careful, gentle, like rebuilding something fragile that had once been whole. They didn't rush. They went for walks in the park, shared quiet dinners, talked late into the evening about parenting, about regrets, about second chances. They weren't boss and employee anymore. They weren't even just ex-lovers. They were Lily's parents, co-architects of the most extraordinary little girl they had ever known. And that was enough. One Saturday afternoon, the 3 of them sat together on the apartment floor, playing a game of family chess. It wasn't about beating each other, it was about solving puzzles together, taking turns moving one side of the board. "Knight to e5, Lily said, leaning forward. Charles smiled. "That's a clever move. You saw that fork coming, didn't you?" Lily grinned. 3 moves ahead. Anna laughed from behind her cup of tea. "Told you she's sneaky." They kept playing until the sun dipped low and cast golden light across the floorboards. There were no cameras. No trophies. Just 3 people, a chessboard, and the kind of quiet joy that doesn't need to be explained. Snow fell gently outside the apartment window, blanketing the street below in a soft layer of white. Street lamps cast a golden glow over the quiet sidewalk, and flakes tapped lightly against the glass like a lullaby. Inside, the warmth of the living room wrapped around the little family like a quilt. The fireplace crackled softly. Its glow danced along the walls and flickered across the faces of the 3 people sitting on the floor in a cozy circle. Lily, now wrapped in a flannel blanket with snowflakes on it. Anna, her eyes relaxed and warm. And Charles, leaning on one elbow with his sweater sleeves rolled to his forearms. Between them sat the well-worn wooden chessboard they had started calling the family board. No timers. No scorecards. No pressure. Just the pieces, a mug of hot cocoa for each of them, and a puzzle Lily had printed from her tournament materials. "Okay," Lily said, pushing her hair behind her ear. "White to move. Mate in 3. Charles raised an eyebrow. "That's a tough one. The rook looks trapped." Anna leaned forward, squinting at the board. "What about knight to g5? Lily shook her head, grinning. "Close, but it leaves the king a diagonal escape." Charles chuckled. "She's testing us." "No testing," Lily said, pretending to sound serious. "This is a team effort." Anna looked sideways at Charles. "Well, team ideas?" He rubbed his chin dramatically. "I say we rotate who makes the move and talk it through." So they did. Move by move. Together. They laughed when Charles tried a move that led to stalemate. They groaned when Anna spotted the queen hanging 3 turns later. And Lily giggled through it all, not because she knew the answer, but because for the first time in her life, chess wasn't just a game between her and the board. It was a shared language, spoken between 3 hearts. Eventually, they found the solution. Knight to f6. Queen to h7. Rook slides over. Checkmate. They sat back, sipping their cocoa, watching the snow continue to fall. "You know," Lily said, gazing at the board, "I think this is my favorite game." Charles smiled. "Really? Out of all the games you've played, tournaments, championships, this one?" Lily nodded. "Yep." Anna looked at her daughter curiously. "Why this one?" Lily turned toward them, her gray eyes soft in the firelight. "Because in this game," she said, "our whole family wins." The words settled into the room like the snow outside, quiet, gentle, and perfect. Charles looked at Anna. Anna looked at Charles. And without a word, they both leaned in, wrapping their arms around their daughter. For a long moment, no one said anything. They didn't need to. Later that night, as Lily fell asleep on the couch, the chessboard still set up beside her, Charles reached over and moved the knight back to its original square. Anna chuckled softly. "You're resetting it?" Charles nodded. "For next time." Anna looked at him, at the man she had once loved, feared losing, and somehow found again, and whispered, "There will be a next time, won't there?" He smiled. "Always." Outside, the snow continued to fall. Inside the game, their game, had just begun. And before we go, we'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Our community stretches across the world, and we're so grateful you're part of it. If this story reminded you that sometimes, a simple chessboard can reconnect what once felt lost, then please hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. Because somewhere out there, there might be another child waiting to be seen. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one to make that move. Until next time, stay kind, and stay connected.